Hi, everybody. I'm happy to introduce you to episode 50 of Retention Zone, just a bit more than a year. And I'm super happy to be with a lot of people that were guests on this show, talking about streaming monetization and retention and churn. So let's introduce quickly my guest of today, starting from Magnus. Little intro and where you're calling from.
Hi, Magnus Svensson, working as a streaming media consultant at Eyevinn Technology, based in Stockholm, Sweden.
Sébastien.
Sébastien Audoux from Paris, former head of sports digital content at Canal Plus in France, and now helping a startup in the sports tech space.
Matthew.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm based in Bath in the UK. I'm a former CMO at the Global Cycling Network and 20 years in the streaming business, working for IOC and ESPN.
And Giles.
Hi, I'm Giles. I'm VP of Marketing at Bango, based in Cambridge. We work on the digital vending machine product, which is bringing together subscriptions for bundling.
So a lot of cool places, but I guess Christy can beat us all, right?
I'm in New York, Christy Tanner. I'm the chair of Swerve Sports. We are a startup streaming fast channel for women's sports. We also run a successful combat sports channel, also called Swerve Combat. And I'm a former CBS executive who has consulted and worked in streaming for 2 decades.
And last but not least, Kirill.
Hi, I'm Kirill. I'm from Geneva, being independent consultant on sports media sites, supporting or consulting small OTT platforms on their development.
Okay, cool. So let's go to 1 year has passed. Not with everybody of you. We really spent 1 year without talking to each other. So, but if you have to think what has caught your attention in this 1 year, starting again with Magnus, what do you think is the thing that in streaming monetization in this ecosystem has caught your attention in 2024?
I think what sticks out, and I think that's not only me, I think that's the whole industry seeing these things, is the move towards a more hybrid monetization culture, where you have a part of subscription and part of advertising funding the different streaming services. And I think that's what we see in even Netflix is moving in that direction pretty hard, even if they're not moving as fast as I don't think they expect. I think they know what they're doing, but I think the industry seems to expect that they should grow faster when it comes to advertising. And what I also see coming into this space is also a bundling part with e-commerce and e-commerce that you can actually get a clickable QR code or something on the screen and actually purchase the things at the same time as you're seeing a show, or you see a clothes that you're liking, and these type of things. So melting together a subscription-funded service with an advertising service is what I see definitely caught in my eye last year, and it's moving rapidly.
Thank you. Sébastien?
Maybe to go to something that is more laser focused on the French market. We've seen obviously DAZN launching in France. They got the rights very late for Ligue 1, and then they decided to launch on the French market. And there was a very intense backlash that is still going on about the price of the subscription, which is $39.99 per month, $29.99 if you subscribe with a year-long engagement. And I guess we all read about subscription fatigue and all the issues around subscription, but here it's been really something really real. I mean, we had fans in stadiums with cards saying we won't subscribe to DAZN. It's too expensive. We're going to go to illegal streaming and all of that. I think it pushed forward a lot of the issues that we've been talking and writing so much about to the forefront. And I guess it goes to a lot of deeper issues about the value of sports rights, the value of streaming platforms around sports, and so on. So I guess in that regard, it's been very interesting following that story on the French market the past few months.
Absolutely. And on one end, if the streaming fatigue was not only the price, but the fact that you had to, like in many countries, subscribe to 4 or 5 different to follow one league or one. In that case, DAZN makes it simple. You just need to follow them. The problem is you have to pay what they decide. So, so let's go on the other side of the ocean with Christy.
I would say this is the year for me that in the US, I think monetization models are clear at the moment. We know how to make money in streaming. I think where we need to go up another level is in the content and programming. And I think that's been the lesson of this year. If your content and your programming are not excellent, if you are just jamming your library onto a subscription service or into a fast channel, that's not enough. You have to pay attention. You really have to reach for the stars. To me, that's the lesson of this year, that you will be dropped from fast platforms if you're not performing, and you will not be performing due to poor programming.
Okay, great take from the US. Giles is agreeing, it seems. What's your take for this year?
Well, I've seen a couple of very linked things. So one is a shift of acquisition to retention. So in the last few weeks, even I've been speaking to some major SVODs who have said this is no longer a game of acquisition at all costs. We have to be selective, choiceful, and make sure that when we're opening up new channels, we're doing it for the right reasons. And with that comes a shift to retention. And with that, as a move from direct to consumer only to indirect bundling. So some recent data from Antenna showed some extraordinary numbers, particularly with some speciality SVOD services, which said 91% of SVOD is now distributed indirectly, which is extraordinary if you think about it. So those are two sort of hot trends linked.
Good. And I think our presenting sponsor, Kling, will be happy about the first statement you did, acquisition and retention. So Matthew, who spent a lot of time exactly in those areas with different big sport OTTs, what's your take of this year?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, you just can't ignore Netflix. I think what they've achieved is quite outstanding. I know they're talked about quite a lot, but I think if you look at their sort of recent announcement on their earnings report, 282 million subscribers, they're doubling profits this quarter, they've got $10 billion worth of revenue. I mean, they just, the engagement is through the roof. They continue to acquire and grow their business through acquiring new customers. And they're also retaining their existing customers and keeping them satisfied. So I think the headlines are really, really interesting. I think it's the story behind that is even more interesting. And it's kind of how have they done that? And I think finding those sort of like, where's that growth going to come from when they're maturing in some markets with the password sharing, right? That was the biggest growth opportunity they had to clamp down on that and move people from watching for free into a paying subscriber. Launching an ad tier. It was already touched on this call, on this podcast already, but I think diversifying those sort of, that pricing and packaging, those options there, sort of like delisting their sort of lowest commercial free tier and adding an ad supported tier. And 50% of their subscribers coming in recently are now coming in on that ad supported tier. And they have huge pricing power because they've got such an amazing brand, they're culturally relevant. And then content, they're looking at investing in. They continue to invest in amazing content, and they've also now gone into live sports. The NFL. They've also signed deals with WWE. They do live boxing. So they're constantly sort of pushing and reinventing and innovating. And I think it's just something that you can't continue to ignore. And there's lessons there for everyone, I think. Yeah,
thank you. And okay, Kirill, what's your take for this year?
For me, this happens here exactly in Geneva as Eurovision Sports started, OTT platform which belongs to European Broadcasting Union, EBU. And for me, it's interesting to see what happens to them, how they develop, because this is something new on the market. And another point, which is interesting for me, we have now several single sport OTT platforms like just volleyball, just basketball, just, let's say, rugby, for example. And it's interesting to see how they grow and how fast they will find a niche where they can exist and hopefully earn some money and get new clients. And maybe another topic is, of course, the growing of fast channels. Now, it's not quite OTT, but if you see what happens, especially in the United States, it's incredible. We are still waiting in Europe for such development. But yes, these are 3 topics for me.
Yeah, cool. So sorry, I keep the same order so you have time to think about it, even if I understand the last part of the group is a bit of an advantage, but in this case, a bit less. So let's restart with money. What is your golden, platinum, baby project of the year or experience you did this year?
Yeah, what I've been mainly focused on the last couple of months and the last half year is actually trying to make the ad experience a little bit more interactive and bearable for the viewer, so to say. So we're working with tons of different technologies around that to also increase the ad load and increase the ad money. So I'm working with a couple of projects with the broadcasters and distributors in the Europe and Nordics with survey-guided ad insertion, where you actually increase the ad fill a little bit better and use your ad load and inventory much more efficiently. But it's also a lot of projects around how you can make the ad experience more interactive with gamification of advertising, making QR codes, making campaigns connected to the content itself and these type of things. So the ad experience might not be interruptive. It could actually be more engaging and gamifications around those, which, because ads will be there. It's not something that will go away. We will work with advertising for the coming years. So making that less interruptive is the projects I'm working mainly on at the moment.
That's something I'm a lot keen on, because old style advertisement, after I spent a lot of time in SWOD, is really disturbing me.
Yep.
Good thing. Sébastien.
One thing I've been funnily involved both on the personal level and on the professional level is really anything to do around streaming for youth sports. It's something that I think is absolutely fascinating, very untapped potential when you look at the success of Super Sports School in South Africa, for example, or to a certain degree Flow Sports in the US. And I think it goes back to also the issue with ROI these days with premium sports, where we saw the somewhat disappointing results from Sky in the UK. It's pretty much the same thing around Europe. It's becoming harder and harder to really monetize. I wish we had the same resiliency as the US market in Europe, but it's clearly not the same. It's been really tough, and I see a huge potential around youth sports. It's something that couldn't have any potential 10 years ago, just because the cost of production were too high, the cost of giving the content to the consumer was too high, and the monetization was pretty much non-existent. These days, everything is being put into place for probably getting more of that content available. And for example, I have a son that is playing basketball at a good level. He's 14. I wish I would be able to see more of that type of youth basketball in France, and that's not possible. Outside of, I give kudos to FIBA, for example, for broadcasting all the youth categories, under 16, under 17s, and all of that. And I wish all the federation leagues throughout the world would think about that. And even, bigger streaming platform. I think that's a really good, anti-churn, possibility as well that people are not thinking enough about.
My personal experience, this is the camera I used to video record all games of my 9 years old when he plays soccer on a Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a very good example, and I think you can monetize that these days.
No, not really. I spend time for free, as always.
You should monetize.
Christy has a story, I'm sure. So,
I think to build on what Sébastien was saying, not only youth sports, but there are opportunities to monetize sports that were previously considered niche or smaller sports. So in the US, you're seeing things like women's ice hockey or lacrosse. Pickleball has a channel. Sports that would have been considered completely too small market to monetize before now can be monetized. Whether they're breaking even, I can't say what some of those other competitive channels are doing, but we've also seen in Swerve a combat sport roll up as a channel go from number 7 to number 1. that is partly due to our ability to program live sports and live matches, which makes a difference in fast where we're competing. And then sad to say that women's sports had been considered a niche for a long time. That in the US market is another massive, massive change. And I think a lot of us are focused on sports in this conversation right now, but we are seeing, and at the same time, a huge shift in monetization towards sports from other verticals. So you've seen news be defunded in the US, and to some extent, entertainment maybe slightly less funded due to broadcast ratings going down, and that money is going into sports.
Good, thank you, Christy. And Giles, what was your pet project this year? Or
well, we've been running around the world studying the effect of the growing subscription economy leading into subscription fatigue. We've studied the US, 6 countries in LATAM, 6 countries in Europe, 3 countries in the Far East just released last week, Southeast Asia and India, and the story's the same everywhere. Too many subscriptions, it's causing subscription fatigue. People don't know where they're subscribed, how much they're paying for subs they're not even using. It's a bit of a mess, it needs consolidation. And what we're doing with a lot of telcos is what's being called super bundling, the idea of consolidating subscriptions so they're paid for and managed in one place. So that's consumed basically the entirety of this year for me.
Yeah, good. Matthew?
Yeah, the GCN Plus was the sort of the brand I was most recently working on, and that's the one I'm sort of extremely proud to be part of. As we're sort of seeing a lot of consolidation and bundling with multi-sports, multi-entertainment platforms, this was a really, really good example of how to super serve a niche audience, and that was a cycling fan. And we basically brought live cycling and documentaries. We had the largest collection of cycling documentaries anywhere in one place, and we brought that to cycling fans all over the world. We're in 170 plus countries, and we grew extremely fast. And I think we had a really amazing business that continued to grow through acquisition. We had incredible retention rates where we were seeing sort of some of our core cohorts of sort of 80% retention rates on annual subscribers. So it was a really, really good business to be part of, and something that, I think sort of shows that there is still a really good place for, super serving niche audiences and doing that really, really well as a standalone business, although the distribution strategy was obviously multi-platform. It wasn't just available in one place. So I think, yeah, I would say I would pick that as probably the most recent highlight that I've been part of.
Yeah, super impressive. Kirill?
My highlight was working with a small international federation on development of their OTT platform. And for me, single sport and most interesting was to decide how many hours of content will you provide, because it's like you have to find this golden middle. It's not too many, not enough content, and to find the right leagues on top of that. If you propose just one sport, like to find the proper mix which will provide you enough new customers and enough new clients. And this is maybe a small project, but was a highlight for me. Yeah,
fantastic. So basically, I think we covered what I wanted to cover. The last thing is maybe in a different order. It would be nice if you remember the episode you were in, first and foremost. And second, I would say, I'll leave it super short. If we are looking ahead, what you're thinking, what you're seeing, just a short one. I randomly pick people now. Let's start with Matthew. Which episode were you in?
37.
Oh,
relatively
okay.
recent.
Yeah. Looking ahead.
Yeah, recently. I think the thing that I think it's been touched on here, but I think the sort of the ongoing consolidation, the ongoing transition that's happening in the industry, trying to sort of simplify the sort of the fragmentation and customer confusion is something that will continue to sort of develop, and we're sort of in the midst of at the moment. I think that's sort of the key play. And I also think that OTT brands will need to, or D2C brands will really need to think about how they sort of mix their revenue streams as well, and think about their distribution partnerships and also other partnerships as well, in order to drive more reach and engagement and finding new subscribers, because it's very expensive to acquire subscribers on your own single OTT platform.
Thank you. Sébastien?
Well,
episode
13.
Oh, wow. It's a veteran.
Yeah, exactly. A long time ago. And actually, I think, right around that time, I think I wrote a lot lately about, maybe a year ago, about peak disruption in sports media. And I think I was so wrong, because I think that anytime I think we are reaching the top of the mountain, it seems that the mountain keeps growing. And I think that's what we're going to see in 2025. I think, again, at least in Europe, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think we're going to see a lot of disruption, a lot of wrong things happening in Europe before we start, building something back up. And to Matt's point, something where it's going to be less segmented, as you rightfully pointed out. The issue mainly is that now we need 10 different subscriptions to watch our sports. It's totally unsustainable. We have a big issue with media rights these days, when you see that FIFA cannot seem to find a buyer for the new FIFA Club World Cup. So we're seeing disruption everywhere. And I don't think it's going to be solved in 2025. I think we're going to have to wait a bit longer. I'm not looking forward to that, but I'm definitely looking forward to the end of that, so we can start building something from the ground up, probably at some point.
Okay, thank you. Kirill, episode number? And
episode 18, long time ago too. For me, I agree with Matt. I think we will have consolidation, and or cooperation is a previous step to consolidation between different platforms, different players, and we have it already now. If you look, you can have DAZN channels on Sky, you can have Sky on DAZN, and vice versa. So we will have it for sure, this grow and this cooperation between big players, big and small players, if small players survive. This is for me the biggest question. How many small players will survive 25, 26? Is not easy for them.
Yeah. And Giles?
Yeah, I was in episode 44, so very recent. And in that, we talked about some of our consumer data, which is kind of interesting to what the guys said. Our methodology shows the average American subscriber has 4.5 subscriptions. The average sports subscriber has 7. So, and that speaks to what Sébastien was saying as well. I think what we're going to see, Matt's already nailed it, is kind of a simplification, or somehow we've got to find a way of solving some of these problems, whether it's consolidation in the venue style, or just simplifying the purchase route to subscriptions and managing subscriptions. I do think we'll see more specialists succeeding though, so there's plenty of room for really focused niches, which I think some others have talked about. And something I hope to see is better use of the second screen. It's not something we're involved in at Bango, but as a sports fan, I'd love to have more cool stuff happening on my phone whilst I'm watching the sport. That would be cool.
I was talking about companion apps with NBC Olympics in 2008. It seems that innovation takes quite some time, at least in sport.
Yeah, how's that going for you, Carlo?
Magnus, episode and look ahead?
Yes, I was part of episode 29, so it was sort of in the middle of what we heard so far. I would say what we'll see in the future is more or less, I would say, bundling, but maybe a little bit wider bundling than we're thinking of at the moment, because I'm not sure that just bundling different services with the same type of things like streaming services will suffice long enough, because I think we'll need more. It's bundling with broadband, bundling with e-commerce, or bundling with even gym subscriptions or whatever it might be, but just bundling smaller streaming services will not make it, I would say. And then even if we're 25 minutes into this pod discussion, I need to mention word AI, because we haven't talked about it so far, but AI will definitely help us in the future when it comes to creation of content, but also fatigue when it comes to finding the content. I think we'll have services where basically that will start streaming the things we want before we even start searching for it. So AI will slowly interrupt and disrupt our industry.
See, one thing that I have to say on the first point that is super personal, I don't want to say all subscriptions, but almost. I'm seeing Disney with all the channels, Prime Video with all the channels. Even if I add the channel, after maybe one day, I don't think that the perceived value of Disney Plus or Prime Video, because I have that more channel, has increased. Even the kids, they say, oh, it's from Prime Video. So I agree. If you just bundle without doing something more about it, after a while, oh, we just have these new movies, it will be the same product.
I think you need to bundle it with more value when it comes to the bundle. It's not only content.
And so now, last word to Christy.
Well,
also because she's like in SNL. Sorry, Christy. She need the jack with the 2 hosting of SNL. No, in this case of Retention Zone. Go, Christy. Sorry.
I think you owe me a Retention Zone T-shirt or something.
I'll bring it. I'll bring it the next time we meet. Absolutely.
I was in episodes 25 and 45. So if we want to keep that going, I'll be happy to be on 65, 85, and 105. And I do agree with Magnus on both the sort of drive for excellence in programming, streaming, and in providing service to customers is key in the coming year, as well as truly creating value via AI, as opposed to gimmicky things with AI, which I hear pitched quite a bit. I think we will just continue to see a drive for excellence, and those who are not achieving it will have to go by the wayside for one reason or another. They will either be dumped by consumers or advertisers will no longer fund them. I think we're already seeing a little bit of that in the US for sure. And building on Sébastien point about Europe proliferating too many services, I was kind of hoping that Europe would avoid some of the mistakes of the US by watching what we did wrong here. Maybe that's still possible. I think that my takeaway from all of it is no matter where you are on planet Earth, there's really no excuse for doing streaming badly anymore. There are enough examples out there that you can copy, that you can steal from, that you should be able to program something well and make money from it without embarrassing yourself. And I'd love to see more of that in the coming year.
And with this kind of admonishment to the whole market, I think it's time to wrap up. So first of all, thank you to all of you. It has been a bit complex to put it together, but to be honest, I'm super happy how we did. You know, sometimes you create this super band like in music, and then the concert is not great. In this case, I'm super happy with the concert result. On the other end, I also want to say thank you to all the other 42 that participated. And let's see if we can get another 50 in the next weeks, month, and 1 year. So thank you, everybody, and ciao. Enjoy the rest of the 2024 going to 2025.